Hey guys, welcome back to another edition of Intuitive Angling. Really appreciate you guys making some time to watch the video. And today I'm going to go over 4 of my favorite deep crankbaits for late spring, early summer fishing. That's sort of the post-spawn deal. Go over each one of them, tell you when I like to use them, and sort of give you guys some tips and advice on that. And I think it really is going to help you catch some big ones on it, because this is a big fish deal that I'm going to be talking about. And real quick, if you guys are interested in getting any of these baits I'm talking about, I'll include the Baitworks link in the description there. It's a great way to support the channel. Baitworks has got every single deep diving crankbait you could possibly use in their store and online. Much appreciated using the link. And also, please hit that subscribe button, guys. Half you dudes out there are still not subscribed to this channel that are watching these videos and getting all this hardcore hogging information, man. Just much appreciated if you could hit that subscribe button. Okay, guys, let's talk a little bit about the deep cranking here. Like I said, I used to love deep cranking. I was fortunate enough to get in on the deep cranking before anybody else was deep cranking. I sort of got onto it by accident, basically back when the old school days, when guys like Paul Elias and David Fritz were starting to catch them deep cranking by triangulating with compasses off the bank and using, you know, old flashers to find stuff. I got into that pretty quick, and I took it down to Grand Lake, and I figured out how to catch them deep cranking down there before anybody did. And there was a period of time for about 5 or 6 years where I had it to myself. I mean, I had all the deep cranking spots to myself. Nobody knew how to do it. Nobody was doing it. Everybody was up fishing on the bank. And as technology advanced and time went on, the effectiveness of that wore off because more people were doing it. But anyway, over the course of the years, you know, I've still incorporated in my arsenal, and I've got 4 different crankbaits here that are my favorites in the early summertime. I'm going to go over each one of them here, sort of tell you the characteristic. Okay, guys, let's start out with my old favorite of all time. It's the old DD22, the Norman DD22. Guys, this is the crankbait here that started it all for me. Back when I was catching all those giant bags of fish at Grand Lake back in the late 80s and early 90s, most of them came on the DD22. It was one of the few, you know, deep diving crankbaits at the time. Actually, back then, they didn't even have the DD22 way back. They had the Norman Deep Big M, I think it was called, which ran about 12 feet deep or so before the DD22 came out. But the DD22, guys, this is still one of my favorite deep diving crankbaits. It's the quality control on this bait's pretty poor. The DD22, it was famous for you got it out of the package and it'd run off to the side. You had to adjust them a lot, and a lot of times you couldn't even adjust them. Some of them, you'd bend them so much that they wouldn't even ever run right. You'd have to throw them away. But once in a while, you'd get a good one that ran straight out of the box, and that was like gold. That was just part of it. But there's some, even though the quality control on the bait was pretty poor, there's something about the design of this bait that it did and still does generate big fish. The DD22, there's a rattle in it, but it's not real loud. It's pretty quiet. But this bait pulls hard. This bait pulls a lot harder than the modern crankbait, so it's a lot more difficult to fish over the course of a day. That's why a lot of people don't like it. But guys, the big fish will hit this. The DD22 is the bait that I start throwing. Say, for example, I've got some fish located offshore on points or ledges or whatever. It's DD22 is normally the first bait that I throw at them. It'll get those bigger aggressive fish right off the bat. But then what happens is this bait telegraphs itself so much with the wobble and the size and the profile that once the fish sort of get off a little bit, you have to make some other adjustments. But the DD22, like I said, when those fish are sort of in that that 7 to 10 foot range, this is the bait I like to throw on it. It says DD22, but I've never caught, I don't think it runs 20 feet deep. Most of the time I'm fishing this bait during the early summer on 15-pound test, Seaguar fluorocarbon and Vizex. Long, you know, Megabass 8-foot launcher rod, and really keen in like that zone around 10 foot or just a little bit less. Now, the next one sort of with that is another old school model, and this is the old Bomber FatFree shad. The Bomber FatFree shad is quite a bit different. The main thing on it is the profile. You can see it's sort of a flat-sided crankbait. Doesn't have near the back on it like that. And this bait is another old school bait. This bait's been around forever. And it's also good on the aggressive fish, but normally this is my backup. So say for example, if I'm catching the fish on a DD22 and they get off it, I'll start throwing the FatFree shad a little bit. The FatFree shad will work a little bit better in the dirtier water. There's just something about it, I don't know what it is. It's got a little bit different sound and rattle on the thing. It's a little bit heavier. And it's just a really good bait to generate strikes on those fish that aren't quite as aggressive. Same deal, I'll fish this bait sort of in that 7 to 10 foot range. That's where I like to fish it on the 15-pound test. Now the next two are the two different ones, a little bit more subtle. This is the Megabass Deep Six crankbait. This is more of a newer generation crankbait. Very similar profile to the other ones. This bait, the Deep Six, will get down a legitimate 20 feet. And the time that I like the Deep Six is this is more of a subtle bait. The wobble on this bait is a little bit tighter. The profile's a little bit more streamlined on it. Even though it's a fairly long bait, it's a little bit smaller profile than like the DD22. And you can see the lip design on it is quite a bit different, which you still got the depth out of it, but you don't have the side-to-side wobble. So the Deep Six to me is a really good bait under tougher fishing conditions when those fish are a little bit deeper. When those fish start getting down sort of in that 10 to 15 foot zone and you're getting highly pressured fish, that's when I go to the Deep Six. These places, these ledge lakes like Kentucky Lake, all the TVA lakes that get hammered by crankbaits, most everybody, guys, throws that. The reason I don't throw the 6XD, the 6 and 8 and 10 XDs is because everybody throws the 6 and 8 and 10 XDs. I like to give them something a little different, and that's really why I like the Deep Six. It'll catch fish behind everybody just because it's a little bit more subtle. And the next one, and the fourth one I'm going to talk about, is my hog catcher. Now this is for when the bass are super aggressive. This is the Big M75 Megabass, and you can see the size difference. Here's the DD22, which is a big crankbait, and you can see how much bigger the Big M7.5 is next to the DD22. It almost looks like a finesse crankbait. This is a big bait, guys. This bait right here has got to be close to 6-7 inches long, probably 7 inches long with the bill. The Big M7.5, it's a little bit different profile on it. It's got more of a aerodynamic profile, and this sucker will get deep. This thing will get down and knock 25 foot deep. It's got a pretty wide wobble on it. You know, it moves a lot of water, it displaces a lot of water, comes in a wide different range of color options, and this is the bait that I'm throwing if I'm fishing around big fish and the fish are aggressive, and especially if those fish are setting up like on points and ledges where you need to burn a bait hard to trigger those bigger aggressive fish. And a lot of times what happens in the early summer is these fish will school up on those points and ledges, and a lot of times you can throw a bunch of different crankbaits through there and you'll never trigger strike. Sometimes going super big is going to get you a lot more bites, and that's why I like that Strike King 10XD gained a lot of fame. It's the same with the Megabass Big M7.5, which doesn't get fished near as much. It's a lot fishier looking. The thing looks a lot more like a bait fish. Again, I'll put this on 15 to 17 pound test line, and I can get it. I can efficiently fish this bait into that 15 to 20 foot zone easily. If those fish are pulled out into that 20 foot zone and maybe some of them are suspending just off the bottom, this is a really good bait. And this is also a really good bait if it's super windy out. If you got one of those days where it's dark and the wind's blowing 20 miles an hour, this is a really good bait to get those aggressive fish. Also early and late in the day with low light conditions. This bait is not designed to be fished under tough conditions if you're trying to finesse them out. It's a big power bait designed to catch big fish. So if you're on a lake that's got some quality fish in it and you've got the right conditions, Megabass Big M7.5. But anyway, guys, that's my four favorite here: the old DD22, the old FatFree shad, the Megabass Deep Six, and the Big M7.5. Like I said, get all their bait works in Missouri, bait works here in Springfield. Link in the description. And like I said, this isn't a video to knock other companies' products, but one of the things about it, one of the reasons I find these so effective is simply they don't get fished as much. Like I said, I'm guessing that 75% of the guys out there that fish deep with deep crankbaits, they're using some type of Strike King brand, and they catch fish. Don't get me wrong, Strike King's got a good bait, but the fish see them a lot. I mean, I'm telling you guys, the fish get hammered over their noggins with Strike King deep diving crankbaits. So give some of these a try. I think it may add up to some good fish for you guys. So thanks for tuning in. We'll see y'all later.